Today, we become legends.
This time on the show, they discuss the busy reveal schedule for next week, what items from Smite 1 the team would like to bring back, where they draw the line on gods versus myths and legends, and a whole lot more. So without further ado, let's jump into the recap. First up, Kilgoon mentioned that next week will be a very busy week for them, which means a lot of news to cover for us. Monday, we'll be going over the healing changes that they've teased previously with the new items and potential healing overhaul. Wednesday will be the full OB15 showcase with Hu Yi, the next Wandering Market, and the rest of the patch, and Friday will be the full balance knows. So every show next week is going to be a banger. If you want to catch my recaps for those as they drop, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really helps my videos get pushed out to more people, so I appreciate it. There's also been some hot fixes since the last show, with the main big one being a fix for the warping after pause, which is good, but there's also been a fix for Scylla's Invisible 2, Morrigan transforming into Wukong causing his 1 and 2 to deal no damage was also fixed, and Wukong's aspect is also now live in-game if you want to go check that out. Someone asked why they aren't bringing Chang'e instead of Janus, considering Hu Yi is right before the next mage release, and Kilgoon basically said that where the game is right now, they feel like prioritizing workflow and popularity / community requests is a better path forward for God Pause, as opposed to doing thematic releases like Hu Yi and Chang'e. Hu Yi is one of, if not the most popular hunter not in Smite 2 at the moment, but Chang'e is far from the most popular mage that they could bring, and they've been getting a lot of requests from the community to bring Janus for a long time, so that's the direction they went. There was a question for Kilgoon about what Smite 1 item passives he would want to bring back that aren't in Smite 2, and he said for the most part it's probably a loss of the healing based items like Breastplate of Regrowth, Vital Amplifier, or Lotus Crown. He feels like those niches really aren't filled at all in Smite 2 right now, which is why they're bringing 9 to 10 new items alongside the healing pass, and I would imagine quite a few of those will be healing adjacent items, and probably a few will be returning Smite 1 effects, and we'll get to see those on Monday. Someone asked a pretty interesting question about what has changed in the industry between Smite 1's beta release and Smite 2's beta release, and Kilgoon said he could go on for hours about this, but brought up two main points. The first one is that free-to-play games have exploded in competition since Smite 1's beta. Back then, there were really only a handful of actually good free-to-play games on the market, whereas now there are hundreds with new ones releasing every month. The other main thing is that games as a service has led to gamers spending more and more time on the same games. Instead of playing 4 different games all the way through once, people will now play Smite or League or Valorant for hundreds of hours, which leads to a bit more of a locked-down audience that are already heavily invested in these evergreen games, so it's harder to bring in new players to try your game. Someone asked when the next Wandering Market collection will be, and Isaiah said it will be in the next update, so they'll be covering that in full on Wednesday. There was a question about moving Milan's flag to an active item slot to free up space for other consumables, and Isaiah said the team are looking into Milan's flag for potential changes, but no timeline on exactly when that might happen. Someone asked Kilgoon what he personally feels Smite 2 needs the most right now, and he said probably the new player experience features still. They've made good strides on that front already, and the data they have already suggests that Quick Play has been incredibly successful at converting new players into long-term players, but there's still a ways to go on that. There was a question on why the team could create a brand new god every 2 weeks back in Smite 1's early days, but now they can only create a god port every 2 weeks despite the UE5 improvements, and Kilgoon said there's a few factors that go into that. Firstly, those kits that were made back in beta, season 1, season 2 of Smite were very simple, which not only made creating them easier, but also meant there were less edge cases where one very complex ability interacts with another very complex ability in a weird way that they have to figure out. The models back then were also pretty low quality compared to what we get now. Just look at, for example, Cupid's model in early Smite 1 versus what we have now in Smite 2. Also, he didn't call this out specifically, but I imagine the dev team being smaller has had a big impact. Someone asked why Quick Play Joust had to be delayed, and Kilgoon said it was mainly an issue with the bots and them not reacting well to the more complex environment of Joust. For example, they would really struggle to actually group up and end the game and would just end up recalling whenever they got low, and it was sometimes leading to matches that would just drag out because you could never get your own bots to group up and push with you, and the enemy bots would also never do that, so it just stalled out, which is not a great first experience for Smite, especially in the mode that is supposed to be fast-paced game. There was a question on how it might impact Smite 2 down the line when all the popular gods are ported and we're only left with unpopular or problematic releases, and Kilgoon said that is somewhat of a concern for them, but he did stress that they aren't only releasing popular gods at the moment. They do mix in some less popular gods that are either highly requested by certain parts of the community or fit well into their dev calendar or fill a unique gameplay niche, like Janus for example. He's not super popular, he's reasonably popular but not massively massively. There are quite a few more popular mages that they could bring right now, but he has a very unique gameplay niche and is highly requested by the community. Someone asked where they draw the line on myths and legends versus traditional deities, and Kilgun said it's sort of a murky line and it moves over time. For example, some people at the studio had reservations about adding Arthurian gods at one point, but now they feel like they fit into the game perfectly and we couldn't imagine Smite without them. The same was true for Cthulhu and Aladdin at points as well, even Mulan. They're open to a lot of this stuff, but also feel like there needs to be a balance where it's not just recent, more pop culture style characters, and that Smite retains the feel of ancient pantheons battling it out for control. Personally, I think they strike a pretty good balance with this right now, and hopefully they do continue to look at some of the more out-of-the-box characters, as I feel like those have been some of the more hype and cool releases over the last several years. The whole Arthurian pantheon is awesome, Cthulhu was the most popular and hyped release of all time, Aladdin is really sick too, but of course a balance point does need to be found there. Someone asked if changing the soul in farm availability will be enough to fix the meta there, and Kilgun said you never fully know with balance changes, and sometimes they can have more or less impact than they think. But their primary suspect right now is that mages can just turbo farm and warriors can't, so they're looking into that as a first step, and beyond that they can start looking at more specific warrior buffs or mage nerfs or changes to their item pool if needed. There was a question about adding weekly quests, and Kilgun said it is on their mind right now and they'd like to get it in sooner rather than later. Probably a fairly bare bones system similar to the daily quest where it's just like play 10 games or kill 1,000 minions or whatever and you get a reward of market coins. And finally, someone asked Kilgun what unique active item effect he would bring to the game if nothing else was a concern, and he said he'd like to explore the idea of some kind of phase out active item that lets you sort of blink your allies out of existence for a very brief moment to dodge a big ultimate with good timing, but they always have to be very careful with effects that can interact heavily with your own team, as they can be used for trolling. But that's everything discussed on the show. Don't forget to drop a like before you leave if you found the recap useful, and subscribe so you don't miss my future ones with all the news going on next week, and I'll catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.